And we'll get into it. And get the nice little set of audience in here.
Been waiting for this day, man.
Yeah, man. And see the way we're doing it today, man. It's a little different, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I like doing it. I've been watching a lot of No Jumper. I watch Star, all these different guys who stream live, right? Yeah. And sometimes some of the best interviews you can get is, you know, from just having an interactive thing with the audience, being able to tap in at the same time.
Of course, yeah.
So big salute to all the people right now who are tapping in. You know what I'm saying? We got a special one going on today. I'm going to make a quick post here on Instagram to just let the people know that we got a special guest, a friend of mine who's been doing a multitude of things to reach where he is today, right? Like I'm talking about from sound engineering.
Yep. I love engineering, by the way.
I'm going to ask you about that at one point too, because like I feel like you still might be behind the boards. You might still have like a Pro Tool set up somewhere in the crib. You know what I'm saying?
It's set up, but it's not fired up, or else I would be dropping tracks or something by now, man. I'm itching.
Right? Getting into legal practicing or practicing, how do I say that? Practicing law.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then getting into politics.
You know, I first ran in 1997.
Yeah, we talked about that because this is a second time that you're here on the network. And for the people who don't know and who are just pulling up on the YouTube live right now, salute. We have Knia Singh in the building, electoral candidate Knia Singh in the building.
Yes, provincial candidate for Humber Black Creek, also known as Finch.
Okay.
Finch.
Okay, so let's get into that even off top before we get into anything else, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about how the campaign's been going. Tell me about the campaign itself and the area that you're riding for.
So the campaign's been going very well. I have amazing volunteers, campaign manager, people who understand what I stand for, and they're supporting me wholeheartedly. It's a really short campaign, 4 weeks.
Okay.
And I am still running the practice. So all day, every day, I'm working on court files. But in the evening, I take a break and I go work on the community and spread the word because, you know, I think it's important that people who are marginalized and put off from politics understand there's people out there who actually have it in their heart to do the right thing. And if they want to vote for somebody, they can vote for somebody they can trust instead of saying, you know, I don't want to get involved. Everybody's a liar.
Yeah.
At least when they see me, they say, okay, wait, I recognize you. I've seen you around here. You've done things that I value. So yes, I'm going to give you my vote. And I just want our community and all people who are pushed away from voting to actually get up and vote because that's the only way things are going to change.
Do you think that it's been getting easier over the years to get people to come out and vote, or is it still a difficult task?
It's difficult, but I notice this time people aren't as resistant to thinking about voting.
Okay.
I think they're so fed up with what they've seen on TV and how things are going that they're ready to put their trust into someone who's different.
Yeah.
And when I say I'm independent, their eyes perk up a bit and they listen more. And I say, look, I'm independent because the parties are only answering to the party. They're not answering to the people that live in the riding.
Yeah.
If I were to get elected, my focus is the constituents. The constituents tell the representative what to do, and the representative takes that back to the House and makes sure their voice is heard. That's how it's supposed to be.
And what is one of the main things that, you know, you're looking to change once you get put into office?
Really how the dollars are spent in the area.
Okay.
I find that, well, for the whole provincial government, they get hundreds of billions of dollars every year. We don't realize how much money they're playing with. And we see the same low services continue. We don't see Ontario Works or ODSP improve so people can actually have some quality of life. We don't see things put into healthcare. Well, the money that goes into healthcare gets wasted. Right. So it's really the wasteful spending and the lack of attention to personal issues in the area. And I think the youth need the most attention. Like education and employment opportunities are the most important thing. You can't just give people jobs, but you can create jobs by stimulating the economy through loans and grants, which are good. But if you can change the education system whereby youth are actually learning quality skills, they will now more be involved in society and start a business and be engaged in education and maybe go on to be a professional, whether it's a doctor, lawyer, teacher, even in the trades. Right? But we're so put off by school because it doesn't make sense. The things we're learning don't connect with our everyday lives. And if education changes, and I would be a big proponent for that, then I think we'll see more success in our communities.
Now, even with you like doing this for, and just to repeat again to the audience, like for what specific community that you're doing there, you're running for?
It's Humber River, Black Creek.
Okay.
So that goes from Steeles down to around Shepherd, from Keel over to Weston. That's the general boundary. But the center and the heart is Jane and Finch.
Right.
And Jane and Finch has one of the most diverse populations, highly concentrated, but there's also the stigma of poverty, right? So you have a mixture of homeowners that have nice homes, but then you have the housing and then the poverty and the violence that goes along with it. And that's only a result of a lack of attention, right? Because if those representatives of those areas were actually focused on that riding, it has to improve, right? But what I see is happening is gentrification. We saw what happened with Regent Park. We saw what happened with Jungle. They're doing the same thing with Finch right now. They're tearing down all the old buildings and they're putting up condos and complexes. Who's going to get to live there? People with money, not people who have worked there 20, 30 years, establishing families. How are they going to have enough capital to purchase a place? So I would actually like to see the builders set aside a percentage of their homes for residents of the area that can buy in, and the government should really supplement them if they don't have enough for a down payment.
So even like with the gentrification, right? As somebody who's been working in, working in politics, working like in as far as city service for so many years, right? For people on the outside and people who are less educated on what happens with gentrification, where are the people being placed exactly? Because you mentioned Regent Park. For what we know, a lot of people from Regent Park get placed to like Brampton, they go further east and stuff like that. Right. And then, you mentioned other areas like, what's another gentrified area that's starting to really happen?
Jungle, like Lawrence Heights.
Right? So they start pushing them more west and all that. So then what's going to happen now if they start gentrifying? Like, what's going to happen with the other places? Like what is the ripple effect?
The ripple effect is people being pushed to the outside boundaries of the city if they agree to be there. But it can mean they end up anywhere. But one of the latent problems I see is unfortunately people have territorial beefs, right? And I know a lot of Regent people were sent out to Scarborough, which, it shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes it is an issue.
It makes it like a kind of a mixed up thing now.
Yeah, it makes it a mixed up thing. And then you're out of like a fish out of water. So it's like, gentrification has there's small good points because you can improve the look and feel of the neighborhood, but the negative aspect is the people who've lived there are now pushed out. If they remained there and came back there, then it would make sense because it's just like you're renovating your neighborhood.
Right.
But you're not renovating, you're gentrifying and you're bringing other people in and pushing the people you don't want out.
Now, let's get back to education for a quick second, right? With the class sizes and all the different stuff that's going on in that specific area that you're running, give me the proper terminology that I should be using.
The riding
for,
right?
Riding in. Is there an issue with the teachers and stuff like that too? Like, underpaid, overworked.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Where they're not as motivated to want to educate a kid that's like even going through troubles at home and stuff.
You're hitting the nail on the head right now. Because my firm did the school suspension and expulsions, we came across a lot of situations where teachers were just so tired of dealing with problem students that they just wanted them out so they didn't have to deal with the problem. I actually had a meeting today of a similar situation where a young person is given a little bit of problems because there's some anxiety at home for some other issues, and they just want to send the kid home. They're calling the mom, take him home, take him home, take him home. And she's like, I got to work, right? So teachers have lost, I'm not saying all teachers, but it seems like when you're in a concentration of a neighborhood that has a lot of problems, teachers are starting to lose that drive to really fix the problem. And it's more like, let's just get rid of the problem. So I think the teachers there need more support. The provincial government has to put more money into education to provide more access to creative programming, things that the youth are interested in. But yes, what they do is they just let them out. So now when I come in, and other of my associates, we speak to the teachers and say, look, did you know this person had two friends just recently died within that past 6 months? They're like, no, we didn't know that. So, well, if you communicated more, you would know that.
Yeah.
And now it makes sense to the teacher why the child's acting out.
Yeah.
Because there's issues going on. So what the communication is the big key. But then another problem is a lot of the parents of these kids aren't engaged in the system. For one, they don't feel confident being there. For two, they're working multiple jobs. Or for three, they just may not be engaged parents.
Yeah.
And you find that the parents that are engaged the most have higher success rates for their kids because the teachers know the parent's going to come. If they do something wrong, the parent's coming.
Yeah.
When no parent comes for a child, the teachers know they can just put them out of the class, they can penalize them, they can exclude them from things, and there's going to be no repercussions.
Yeah.
So our families and our communities have to get more involved with their children's education, and instead of putting them in front of a tablet every so often, give them a book, right? But reading is a lost art, and I find that reading is actually one of the things that got me to where I am, because as a young child, my mother always used to give me books to read, always doing my times tables, and that just ingrained a level of communication, understanding, spelling. So when I had to write, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And then I was able to be more confident going through the school process. I think the kids lack confidence because they're just not settled with those basic skills.
Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on that. I definitely respect what you're saying, but a lot of times these days with social media, with so many different images that people can access at such a quick point, it's hard to get a kid to sit and read something.
It is if you don't start it early. What I find, and people out there might be able to see this, it seems like autism is on the rise, and a lot of kids have attention deficit disorders because as a young age, at 1 and 2 years old, they're given a tablet, and the kid sits there and plays with the tablet. So now the child is now focused on the interaction with the tablet or the phone.
Yeah.
They don't know how to look an adult or another person in the eye and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because they're so socially isolated. Their world is that phone now or that tablet. So it's hard to get anyone to sit down and read nowadays.
Yeah.
But it is something that is a lost art. Even writing. Most people don't even know how to do cursive anymore or even just print their name.
Spell, dude.
Spelling, yeah. And that's why I say reading, because the more you read is the more you're exposed to different words, and then your vocabulary increases.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And even with like the area that you're writing in, right? Gun violence is when it comes to the news, it's one of the places that you always see come up in the news. West End, they always say North York, and then when you hear the streets that are, because I'm like, there's two North Yorks, right?
Yep.
It could be the east end of North York or it could be the west end of North York.
Yep.
But I always wait for the streets and they'll be like Jane and something. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
So there's one thing where there's a lot of gun violence, right? So I have a two-part question. One, what can you do to bring down some of that gun violence once you're elected, or if and once you're elected?
Yep.
And two, do you think that there's partially a stigma on that area because of the gun violence? Like it's actually heightened in far as the awareness to make that stigma even stronger.
Absolutely a stigma. It's been there for decades since we were young, right? So that stigma is permanently there. When it comes to solutions, opportunity is one, but getting to the young ones when they're like 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Because when they're 7, 8, 9, they're not so heavily influenced, but when they hit 10, 11, 12, they're starting to go through puberty. They're looking up to the older ones. They want to emulate that.
Yeah.
But if you can ingrain into them a path and a future and what's right from wrong and where your life could end up if you take the wrong path, they will be more conscious to avoid those paths. We can't get everyone to avoid them because sometimes it's your environment.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have the knowledge of legal knowledge, of economics, of just knowing that you could end up dead or in jail, those kids might steer away. So that's one thing, getting them really early. But the second thing is not giving up on those who are already involved.
Right.
And that's a lot of things. That's what I hear from a lot of politicians or a lot of educators. Oh, once they're 15, 16, they're lost. There's no hope for them. Not at all. I know people who are in their 40s now who have changed from when they were 20 and 18, 19, and they've changed their lives. And it doesn't mean that a 16-year-old is hopeless. But we have to listen to what that 16-year-old is saying, because the fact that they can walk out into the street and get shot at any time is real. And because other people don't live that lifestyle, it seems alien to them.
You're right.
But that's an actual reality, and we have to factor that into the solutions. They need support constantly, and it can't be support from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock when the community center is open. This has to be 24-hour around the clock. And I'll quote Louis March. Like, Louis March from Zero Gun Violence always says that. Like, what's happening in the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when the shadow people are out? Like, who do they have to go to?
Yeah.
And that's what I would do. If I had the budget and the resources, I'd be making sure there are 24-hour places where people can go, that they feel safe, that they could communicate, that they can, just reason.
Yeah.
Because reasoning is something that we don't do anymore. And one of the heavy influences on gun violence is conflict resolution. I find that our community, again, due to the lack of self-esteem and to the lack of always trying to prove yourself, we can't let a man disrespect us or a woman disrespect us in the slightest way. We have to react right away to prove a point.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, that's uncalled for. Like, I didn't come at you like that.
Yeah.
Did you misinterpret me? Like, you got to articulate yourself. And we have a problem. The community has a problem articulating themselves. And I think that leads to a lot of gun violence. And the fact that you don't want to be disrespected is another cause of this gun violence. Now, territorial things is another issue. That's the major thing. We don't own the streets. And I know it's a cliche because we say it all the time. We don't own the neighborhoods. So how can you claim it?
Yeah.
Yes, you live in that environment. No, you don't want anyone disrespecting it. But at the same time, what are we fighting over? People should be working together. Big businesses, they cooperate. They become conglomerates and they take over other businesses. People in the neighborhood, they don't work together.
Yeah.
They're always working against each other. And
It's always competition.
Yeah, competition. And we have to start seeing each other as human beings more. Black people specifically, and black men, have been objectified for hundreds of years. We are commodities, right? Through the slave trade, we were commodities to produce. And now in sports arena, we're commodities to produce. And in the entertainment field, we're commodities to produce. I find that there's a lack of empathy for people with darker skin, especially the black male. And I'll tell you this, those two tragedies within a week, the mass killing in Buffalo and the mass killing in Texas, you can see the way the media treated them differently.
Yeah.
Right. And no one's really talking about it. And I know it's a bit taboo, because when you start talking about it, people think, oh, what, you don't care about the other people? No, we care about everybody.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the media attention on the killings in Buffalo was much shorter, much quicker, and less empathetic. And we have to try to understand, why is that happening?
Yeah.
But we as people, as black people, black men, have to look at each other and value each other's lives. We never think about, okay, if I pop this guy, like, what's his mom gonna feel? What's his daughter gonna feel? His son, his girlfriend, friends. We're not thinking about that, because it's just a body. And in these songs, it's just another N-word. Like, I don't want to perpetuate saying the word, but you all know what I'm saying. Like, you hear it so often. Oh yeah, I raise up and I blast the N. Wet up
in the block.
You know
what I mean? Had his mama crying. So listen, before we continue, I want to send a big salute to the people here on Instagram. I want y'all to tap into our YouTube right now. We're on YouTube. I have an exclusive interview with Knia Singh right here in the building. All right. We're going to be getting into some conversations about what he has going on with the election coming up this Thursday. Okay, I want y'all to make sure to exercise your right to vote. All right, tap into the YouTube. And for the people on YouTube right now, if y'all want to ask some questions and get your questions read on air, hit the super chats. Any donations are appreciated, and we'll be reading your comments as well as we go through this. All right, Instagram, y'all know what to do. So one thing with like the last 2 years, okay, and I'm gonna tread lightly because we're on YouTube.
I will try my best.
Right, but I'm gonna tie it into with the election, right, and everything that's we've been having a conversation about right now.
Yep.
How do you think the pandemic has affected all of these different socioeconomic and different things that we've been having a discussion about.
It's exacerbated them to the max. It's just made everything tenfold, 100-fold worse, because people were already stressed before the pandemic about life, the cost of living, and just trying to make it. With this, the limitations on where you can go, how you can work, what you're being told to do, and then the disputes within families, it's just driven people apart. It's made people lose a lot of hope. I know people who have taken their lives because of this.
Wow.
And businesses are going under. Like, so many people have lost their livelihoods through something, to me, that doesn't make sense. The measures do not correlate with the risk that's there to the public. And I find that they keep talking about misinformation, but the ones who keep saying misinformation are the ones who are propagating or promoting the misinformation. Like, it's such a psychological MF, right? And I think that until we all really get a handle on what's happening and understand it, we will continue to go into the cycle, because what's happening is people are arguing over a false premise. And if you're arguing over a false premise, you're wasting your whole time. What we have to realize is, because we're on YouTube, I have to be careful of what I say.
We have to tread lightly.
And that's a problem, right? We used to have
that is a problem, actually.
We used to have free speech, but people can read between the lines to understand that if you have an argument over Santa Claus, what's the point? If you have an argument over the Tooth Fairy, what's the point? So we're having an argument over something that has existed since the beginning of human existence. And our minds and our bodies have adapted to things to protect ourselves. If something has been put in front of you that has the potential to wipe out the entire human population, I can get some of the measures, right? I can get that. But factually, that's not the case. There is no way, potentially, ever, that what has been presented is going to extinct the human population. So why are we acting like it is?
Now, let me ask you, bringing it back to the community, because with our community, or even with the community that you're riding in, I know, or I'm assuming that it was affected because, especially, there's a divide between people who are willing to go get their jabs and people who aren't. So when you get to like areas like Jane and Finch and Black Creek and all that, I would imagine there'll be more people who aren't jabbed than who are. Am I wrong about that?
No, I don't think you're wrong about that, because Statistics Canada was showing that if we're talking about the African Canadian population, they were 56% likely to get it, compared to the rest of the population, which was 78% likely to get it.
Wow.
And then the second highest number was the Latino population, which were about 64% likely to get it. And Jane and Finch is made up of predominantly African descent and Latino.
And Latino,
So that whole area definitely probably has the lowest rate of what you just mentioned. And I remember driving by Driftwood when it first came out. When the thing came out, the pretend solution first came out, there was lineups. And I'm like, why are all these people lining up? And it's just like, because they've been taught to be fearful. They trust the information source. They go along because they're trusting, but because us as people of African descent who have been targeted and discriminated against, we're more critical of the system. So our minds are more questioning anything that's presented to us, and we'll say, no, we'll wait a little bit first. And then second, no, I don't want none of that. And then even like just religious, right? Rastafari and other Orthodox religions are very much against trying to go too far outside natural ways of living. And this is a very unnatural remedy to a very natural problem.
To holistic healers and different people like that. So for this Thursday coming up, and this is also another reason why I thought this was like good to do this on live too, because the elections are coming up this Thursday. There's a whole bunch of different people who are running, right? Like, I guess that's how like the political system works. On that one day, people could just vote for all the different types of elections, or am I wrong about that?
No, it's just the one provincial right now.
Okay.
So we got our 3 levels. You got your municipal, which is your city. You got your provincial, which is a province, and then the federal, which is everywhere across the entire country.
Okay.
So this election is the Ontario provincial election. So each province does their provincial elections at different periods of time. But this is ours. And then after this one, it'll be another 4 years. You get to choose who represents you in your area.
Okay.
But what the media does is they give you the leaders and they tell you to choose a party, which is deceptive.
So the NDP or the Conservative Party and all that, because that's all I'm seeing when I'm watching CP24 and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So I'm not aware. Like, you had to put me on that you're in an election at this point, right?
Right. Because they won't cover small ridings.
That's what I'm saying.
And the fact that I'm running independent, they'll probably shy away from that as well, because there is a preference to have people vote through parties, because when they vote through parties, you can sway how the election turns out.
Yeah.
If the media pushes enough of one party, they're going to get the vote. Or if the media pushes enough negativity about a certain party, they won't get the vote.
Right.
So that's how it works. This is all controlled, unfortunately, by how much media exposure you get. Now, you know, the hardcore people, they're going to go in their riding and they're going to knock on doors and they're going to get support, which is great. But again, they're not saying, I'm going to do my best for you. They're saying, oh, Doug Ford's going to build a highway, or, you know, Del Duca's going to ban everybody who's not jabbed from going to LCBO.
Right.
That's a fact, right? But they're not telling you that, but I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So
I'm just hearing about this now. I watch CP like crazy.
Listen, months ago, Del Duca was running on that. He's like, when the whole lockdowns were heavy, he's like, and we should prevent people who aren't vaccinated from going to the LCBO. I'm like, what? Like, that's one of the few things that people are calming themselves down for. And what you should be doing, if you're really concerned about health, you should close the LCBO and you should ban cigarettes, because we're talking about a respiratory illness. Yeah. And you're selling millions of cigarettes
and alcoholism and all types of stuff,
which lowers your immune system. Yeah. Right. So when it comes to politics, they've been promoting the parties, but what they should be promoting is focusing on your riding. So wherever you live, you should be looking at who the candidates are. And regardless of their party, say, okay, Jim, do I like him? Rob, do I like him? Kelly, do I like her? Or whoever. And understand what they're about. What's their experience? And then you choose who's the best person that's going to connect and represent your ideals. That's an effective democracy and election. But with parties, you don't get that. All you get is the party value, the leader, and you think you're voting for the leader, but you're really voting, you're voting for your representative, but they make you vote for your leader.
So why did that happen? Like, because I know that it's a distrust for the media. I know that there's also distrust for politicians. That's just like a general thing that people. I don't trust politicians. I don't trust what they say on the media. The news is a bunch of liars, right? Yep. But I feel like there's some kind of a relationship that's happening between politicians and media from what you're explaining right here, because there's certain people who are getting pushed to the front, and then others like yourself and other people who are working on different levels, but just as important, pushed in the back. Right. Is that? Am I wrong by thinking that?
No, you're not wrong. We got to go way back, and you got to go to the printing press, and you got to go to newspapers, because when elections were way back happening, whoever had the front page paper and the article influences the majority of people. That then translated to radio. So whoever had access to the radio interview, which I got right now, which I'm happy for, thank you. Or radio, but
we on all platforms.
Yes, media, right? Yeah. So when you get access to the radio back then, you have an advantage, and then it became television, right? So when media decides now, certain media companies favor certain ideologies. We look at the Sun newspaper. Yeah, they are known as a right-wing paper that touts racism and all types of nonsense, right?
Yeah, they got some crazy headlines.
Oh man, I used to collect those papers every time there were shootings back in the day, and they would just plaster, black faces and really ridicule them. I used to collect those. I still have them somewhere. Wow. But noticeably, the Sun is a right-wing organization. The Toronto Star used to be known as a left-wing organization. So both of those papers would now write favorable articles for whichever party that they really resonate with. And then that's what starts to become popular. But now what I find is the media is neither right-wing or left-wing.
Okay.
They are now just controlling which way it goes. And I'll tell you a little trick. It's like when the NDP, when Jack Layton was still alive, and the NDP was going up against, I can't remember who it was in power at the time, Stephen Harper maybe. But the media started giving attention to a group that they didn't want to win, just so that group can get enough votes to pull away from the real threat from the party they wanted to win.
Split the vote, as they say.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They start to give them attention to split the vote. And if you notice, that sort of happened with the Green Party now. They started giving the Greens a little more attention, which is good because Schreiner did very well at the debates. But what that does now, it takes away from the Liberal and the NDP and makes the Conservative stronger. Because there's only one right-wing party, and now there's these other left. But I'm telling you right now, the left and right thing is over. There's no more left and right.
Okay.
There's just an agenda, and the media promotes that agenda. But people, my analogy is this. Every election, you're given $1. And on election day, that dollar is going to disappear. Why not spend your dollar? Why let it go to waste in your pocket?
Yeah.
You can control at least where support goes. And for anybody who's running for the betterment of their community, they should get that support. Don't worry about strategic voting. Oh, if I vote for this person, that person won't get in. No, just vote with your heart. Vote with what you understand. But don't let your vote go to waste, because that's power. Other countries, people die for votes. We as people weren't allowed to vote. Indigenous people were not allowed to vote. Women were not allowed to vote because the power structure knows that that's what controls their system. And the more that we believe politics is a sham and the more we stay away from it, is the more control and power they have.
I got a question on voting as ex-convict, right? And I'm going to go through, before I actually ask my question, let me go through a couple of these comments here. Salute to the comment gang here. Comment gang strong. Don Phillies 215 in the building. Adrian 576 in the building. I'll read your question even though you didn't send a super chat. Adrian wants to know, how do you feel about the recent gun ban / freeze?